top league in Ireland, because there's no money to be made, and if you're making money, it's not enough money to live off. If I ever got to the level where I was going to be making some money out of it, which, to be fair, like there are guys who, when I stopped playing, that would have been at the level that I was at my age, that did make a little bit of money out of it, but still, like, I would have barely made enough to live off, and that was only a maybe. That was only a
That
slight
personal background helps explain why the reaction is so strong. The speaker is comparing what he sees now with his own experience in basketball culture and saying that this does not look like the way he expects a professional sports organization to operate. But there is another important point to consider. The WNBA is operating in a media environment that is very different from the one in which many traditional sports communication rules were created. Today, a Reddit moderation decision can become a cable news story, then a social media argument, then a league statement, and then material for another round of online videos. Everything moves much faster now. 20 years ago, an unofficial fan forum could make a strange decision and almost nobody outside that forum would know about it. Today, one screenshot can spread across several platforms within minutes. By the time the league's communication staff sees it, journalists may already be asking for a response. So the real comparison is not simply the WNBA versus another basketball league. It is professional sports organizations dealing with an online ecosystem that they cannot control. Every organization now faces the same difficult question: when should it correct misinformation, and when will correcting it only make the misinformation more popular? In this case, the WNBA chose to clearly explain what it did not control, and that was a reasonable position. But critics are asking for another kind of clarity too. If the league is willing to explain what it does not control, fans also want more confidence about how the league handles the issues that are actually within its control. That is a much harder standard to meet.
I've been around this sport my entire life. I've never seen a league act like this. I've never seen any sort of league act like this. Like, heck, I've seen players in the Irish leagues get suspended for social media posts. I've seen an Irish player that I know post some, I can't remember what they posted, it was absolutely hilarious, and the president of Irish basketball responded on Twitter saying, "We'll see you at your disciplinary hearing," which is...
That Irish basketball example sounds almost funny, but it creates a useful comparison. In a smaller league, disciplinary authority can sometimes seem very direct. Someone posts something, an official sees it, and the response is basically, "We will deal with you at the hearing." Professional American sports cannot operate that simply. There are player unions, legal requirements, formal disciplinary procedures, sponsors, television partners, and major public relations consequences connected to almost every decision. That system exists for good reasons. However, bureaucracy also creates distance between the league and its fans. Fans usually do not see what happens behind the scenes. They see an incident, then silence, and maybe a short statement several days later. If they do not understand what is happening during that time, the league can look like it is doing nothing even when an internal process is taking place. That is why transparency becomes more important as public attention increases. Transparency does not mean revealing private disciplinary information or responding to every rumor. It means making the rules clear enough for people to understand three basic categories: what the league controls, what the teams control, and what has nothing to do with either one. The subreddit clearly belongs in that third category. If its moderators restrict discussion about a player's name, the criticism should be directed at those moderators unless there is evidence that someone outside the community influenced the decision. The league's statement says it has no connection to the subreddit, and nothing in this discussion proves otherwise. So blaming the WNBA for the Reddit moderation decision would not be supported by the available facts. But blaming all of the chaos surrounding WNBA discussions on Reddit would also miss the larger point. The Reddit controversy became so big because the environment around the league was already highly divided and sensitive.
This league's more unserious than the Irish Super League. This league's more unserious than the Irish Super League. And I didn't think anything could be more unserious than that. This is so unserious. As a league, it is so unserious. But yeah, it is. We are absolutely now at a point in time.
Calling the league unserious is clearly the speaker's opinion. But now we can finally get to the deeper answer that the opening did not explain. The reason this small Reddit story became news is not because Reddit suddenly became important to professional basketball governance. It became news because Sophie Cunningham and the WNBA are now operating in a larger culture war involving attention, fandom, player treatment, and trust in the league. In this environment, almost any moderation decision can be seen as evidence of something bigger. Cunningham is not being discussed online simply as a basketball player. Her name can start arguments about officiating, physical play, fan loyalty, media coverage, and which groups of fans believe certain players are treated fairly or unfairly. Once a player becomes a symbol of a larger debate, even moderating discussion about that player can become symbolic. That is why restricting her name on a subreddit could move from a small internet dispute to national sports coverage. The actual event is small, but the meaning people attach to it can become much larger. The WNBA is caught in the middle because its rapid growth and increased visibility have moved faster than the public's understanding of what the league actually controls. Many people discover the WNBA through short clips, podcasts, social media, fan communities, and opinion-based commentary before they ever learn how league rules, discipline, or governance work. As a result, many different controversies get reduced to one simple idea: the WNBA did this, even when the person responsible was actually a referee, team employee, broadcaster, fan, journalist, or, in this case, independent Reddit moderators. That is the deeper challenge for the league. The WNBA needs people to understand the difference between the league itself and the huge online world that surrounds it. But as the WNBA becomes more culturally important, keeping those two things separate will become increasingly difficult.
I don't understand what the WNBA can do. I don't know what they can do to stop all of this, or if there's anything they can do. Or have they just dug the hole so far that by trying to get out, that they're trying to dig themselves deeper? And like, it reminds me of the Simpsons thing. It was like, we've dug too big a hole. It's like, no, dig up, dig up. Like, I don't know what exactly they're gonna do. I don't know what they can do to get out of this.
That idea of digging deeper points toward the next problem. Once public trust becomes divided, communication decisions can sometimes create the opposite result from what the league intended. If the league stays silent, critics may say the silence shows that it is avoiding the issue. If it gives a short factual response, critics may ask why this topic received an immediate statement when another controversy did not. If the league gives a detailed explanation, the story may receive even more attention because the league has now made it an official issue. There is no perfect statement that can satisfy people who fundamentally disagree about what the real problem is. One group may believe the main issue is unfair treatment of Sophie Cunningham. Another may believe the real problem is aggressive or toxic fan behavior around her. Another may think Reddit moderation has nothing to do with the WNBA and that the media created the controversy by covering it. These groups do not even agree on what needs to be fixed. Because of that, the WNBA cannot solve every cultural conflict around the sport through communication alone. What it can do is be extremely clear about its authority and its rules. If something is outside the league's control, it should say so clearly and move on. If something falls under an existing conduct policy, the league should explain the process without deciding the outcome in advance. If a player or team is disciplined, the same standard should be applied consistently. If no rule was broken, the league should say that when appropriate instead of allowing endless speculation to continue. The goal should not be to win every argument online because that is impossible. The goal should be to make it clear to reasonable people who made a decision, what authority they had, and what rules they were following. That sounds simple, but in the current WNBA media environment, it could be one of the most valuable things the league can do.
But they have entered full-on Wackoville. They've entered, I don't even know how to describe it, like, full-on Wackoville. And things only seem to be getting weirder and weirder and weirder for this league. They don't seem to be improving in any way. Ever. And it just feels like things were like...
Weirder and weirder is one way to describe what is happening with this league, but a more accurate word might be noisier. The basketball itself is now competing with a permanent second league that exists entirely online. In that online world, every quote becomes a matchup, every moderation decision becomes a possession, every media segment becomes evidence, and fans keep score based on which side they believe was treated unfairly. The danger is that these arguments can move away from facts that can actually be verified. That is why the league's Reddit clarification should be kept simple. The WNBA says it does not moderate or have any connection to the subreddit, unless evidence shows otherwise. That should settle the question of who was responsible for restricting the discussion. But it does not answer the bigger question of why the story became so important. It became important because there is now a large audience ready to believe that almost anything involving certain players is part of a bigger fight over the future and direction of the league. Whether league leaders like that idea or not, ignoring that audience will not make it disappear. The smarter approach is not to chase every online narrative. Instead, the league should slowly build trust by creating clear and predictable standards. The more consistent the WNBA is about issues it actually controls, the less convincing unsupported theories become when something happens outside its control. That is how trust in an organization is built. You do not rebuild trust with one perfect press release. You build it through many simple and consistent decisions that give people fewer reasons to guess about what is really happening.
Running through a circle where we're running on a hamster wheel where we're going nowhere. And we're just going further and further and further towards Wackoville.
And that hamster wheel image is probably the best way to end the larger argument because the league risks getting stuck in exactly that cycle. A new controversy starts, people react online, fans demand a statement, everyone argues about the statement, and then another controversy appears before the first one is even resolved. Eventually, the constant noise becomes the main story. That would be a mistake for everyone involved. Sophie Cunningham should be judged based on what she actually says and does, not based on what random Reddit moderators decide to do with her name. Reddit moderators should be judged based on their own rules and how they enforce them. Journalists should be judged on whether they clearly explain the difference between an unofficial forum and the actual league. And the WNBA should be judged on decisions that are truly within its control. These boundaries matter because when every independent action is blamed on the league, real accountability becomes weaker. People waste time blaming the wrong organization while important questions about officiating, discipline, player safety, league rules, and competitive fairness get buried under internet drama. There is also another lesson here for the WNBA. As the league becomes more popular, it can no longer decide which stories will become nationally important. Fans, players, social media algorithms, and media companies all play a role in deciding that. Something league executives may consider completely unimportant can become a major communication issue within hours. The answer cannot be to react emotionally to every online trend. The league needs a clear system. It should correct important factual misinformation when necessary, protect legitimate safety and disciplinary procedures, explain when something is outside its authority, and avoid treating unofficial internet arguments as if they deserve the same importance as real basketball issues. Then it should bring the attention back to the sport. The irony of this entire situation is that the simplest fact is also the least dramatic one. According to the league's own spokesperson, the WNBA does not run the subreddit. Most of the controversy happened afterward, when people started arguing about what that fact supposedly meant. So now the question is simple. Was the league right to respond quickly and stop the misunderstanding before it spread further? Or should it have ignored the unofficial Reddit dispute instead of giving it an official response? Tell me which side you are on in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns that separate what is actually verified from what the internet is claiming, like the video and subscribe.